Let him be in the office for 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years only. That's it.
You can do
They're
a lot
afraid
in 4
of
years.
those 4 years. That
Yes.
he's gonna,
because
honestly,
he knows where the bodies are buried.
but he didn't do shit from 2016 to 2020. What did he do exactly?
He drained the swamp.
How exactly?
Okay, so let me ask you this. A lot of people, I think, miss this. When he said drain the swamp, right? Everyone's like excited about it. When you have your sink, do you ever like fill water up in your sink and let your plates soak in the sink at all when you're doing dishes?
Yeah.
You ever had that, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you put your sink in and you have the water in there. When you drain it, do the plates go down the drain too?
No.
No. You get to really see all the plates you have to wash, right?
You want to tell me that he showed the Americans who the real evil is? Who's playing against them?
That's what happens when you drain something out. The things in there don't necessarily go down the drain. If they can't fit down the drain, if the drain's only this big and you have a big nasty ball of crap, is that going to make it in? Or you can go, oh my God, we got to do some real work here. You look around and everything is popping out now. Everything's coming in. Fauci, the Bidens, like Obama, everything's coming out.
But that happened after 2020.
Yeah, that was still his promise.
They did that, not Trump.
He did that.
No one knew what Nancy Pelosi was doing.
Well, yeah, but
she's an incredible investor.
But people knew before. When the FBI started coming after Flynn, that's the beginning. If you were seeing some of the signs, you're seeing the swamp creatures' heads start to pop up. That was all through those 4 years. All through those 4 years, you saw who the nasty people were. The media that we watched. The media that we sat there and watched over were the first ones we saw from the draining of the swamp, who kept saying he's the most racist, who would sit there and have him on and then stop. They would stop the video of him speaking because they didn't want the American people to hear from him. Those are swamp creatures. Now you know. MSNBC was MSDNC. Now you know. CNN. Now you know. Everything. So now what is he promising next? We're going to get them. So the first part was to drain it. Second part is to clean it. Oh, I got to patent that one. That was pretty good. I just came up with that right now. So it's like I think people we have to really, words matter. And the government especially is very particular about what words they do and don't use. Anything you see on TV, FDR said a long time ago, you see it in politics, it's not done by accident. So you see him say drain the swamp. Now we know all the people in 2020, you say they did it. They did it because of what? Because of who?
Yeah, but they got Joe Biden elected.
And all the
81
stuff we
million
saw, and all
votes.
And we needed to see that too. We needed to see that too. In these last 4 years, for the people that I've seen now pay attention to elections.
Oh man, wow. And people turning to Christianity? Wow.
It wouldn't happen if we didn't drain the swamp so you can see the swamp creatures. We all had this idea of the swamp creatures. Now we're seeing it for real. We're seeing the FBI come after regular people. Because of who? Trump. Because of his promise to drain the swamp. So it's there. He made true on his promise. Mike Pence. We wouldn't know who Mike Pence was if he wasn't there. All these people, man. Like we gotta remember. Like people thought drain the swamp was something else, and it took away from. I'm like, wait, that's not what happens when you drain something. When you drain something, you get to see what you got to do. A lot of people are stepping up now because of that.
What do you think is going to happen if Trump does not win?
To me, that's more speculation. I would say everybody move to a red state and get a bunch of guns, because I do believe that if something happens where, to me,
let's just say he's alive, he just loses the elections.
Honestly, I can't see that happening. I see too much momentum. If he honestly just loses, I think then the heavy-handedness of the government that we've just seen the last 4 years and the terrible policies, that is just the beginning.
The U.S. is going to turn
straight
into
like
Canada.
Venezuela. I'd say more like Venezuela, because people are going to be left. They're going to be left to have to fend for themselves while they're paying for non-citizens to illegally live here. That's different than what Canada does. They're going to sit there and let people's businesses go into the ground and go bankrupt and struggle.
So U.S. is right here in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Up north, you've got communist, really communist, socialist Trudeau.
Yeah.
For how many years?
I think he has another 2.
2 years.
Yeah.
Up down, you have a new socialist Mexican.
Oof. AOC of Mexico, as they say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if they both combine, they can destroy the U.S.
No, they can never do that.
Why not?
Because, I mean, not militarily. It would have to be complacent. It'd have to be
just with the open borders. If you start flying in immigrants to the Canada and then letting them in from the north,
but the open borders are still based on what we do or don't do. That's still on us, and so they have to do that.
Yeah, but you don't do shit.
Not now.
Thousands every month.
But before with Trump, we'll shut down. Lowest crossings in like 20, 30 years. Then Joe comes, biggest crossing in American history. It's the policies. And we got to get our guys in there for the policies. We got to break up the centralized power in D.C. And I see it happening just in Hollywood. Hollywood now, a lot of people are leaving Hollywood. A lot of the industry, Sony's trying to start some in Vegas with Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson. A lot of these companies already have their corporate offices in Texas. So California is basically losing Hollywood. That's going to spread out the power that they have. You see things like Daily Wire are doing more projects. You see more projects in Texas and Florida and so on.
Angel Studios.
So that's a good thing. You need to decentralize the power. That's the same thing Trump's promising with the government. You decentralize where the power is, and you spread out the agencies throughout the country so that you go, okay, you in North Dakota who knows about environment, that's where the EPA will be. You guys will lead the way. The locals there will have a better understanding of certain policies, not bureaucrats that just stay in D.C. and fly from their place to D.C. and then they're insulated there.
When was the last time you watched a good Hollywood movie?
Well, I'm in the middle of watching one now, which is Dune 2. And I think it's pretty good. But before that, it was The Northman, which is kind of not really Hollywood.
That's not really Hollywood.
I know, yeah. But I'll say Dune 2. Dune 2.
It's like 1 to 2 movies a year.
If that. I watch a lot of anime because everything sucks. I'm like, I'll just do that. Or I'll watch conservative stuff that's been made. I've watched the last good movie that I did watch that was made here that wasn't Dune 2 was Nefarious by Steve Dace over there at it's a really good movie. You should check it out. Nefarious.
What does it mean?
Nefarious is just means what does nefarious mean? It's this evil intent, right? And so ultimately, it's like C.S. Lewis wrote something called the Screw Tape Letters, and it's about letters from a demon. So this is about a demon trying to get some guy to write his book for him, his manifesto.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's fire. Yeah. Steve Dace, the guys over at The Blaze, they produced that. It's really good. It's really good. Chosen. If people haven't seen The Chosen with Angel, that's amazing.
But let's talk Hollywood. Hollywood is doomed, right?
Yeah. Hollywood's doomed, especially with the contracts they just did for the actors.
And once again, especially since 2020, something like switched in 2020. 2019, Marvel Studios were on the top billions, 2.5 billion for Avengers Part 1, Part 2, billions of dollars. Right now, every year like a 500 million, 600 million loss.
Down. Disney's lost like 2 to 3 billion since they bought Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is what happens when you move away from storytelling, go into agenda-driven content. They've been pushing agenda. This most recent Star Wars is all like the Force is female, so everything's gonna be female and lesbian. And in Romans 1, everybody go check it out. I think it's 126. They will make sure. Let me get it right because it's so good. When I read this, I was like, how does everyone not know this? And so let's see here. We have. This is one of my favorite verses because they will change what is good and natural,
but they will go bankrupt.
Well, their arrogance. So it says, for that reason, Romans 1:26, for that reason, God gave them up to vile passions, for even their women exchanged the natural use for what is against nature. Likewise, also the men, leaving the natural use of a woman, burned in their lust for one another, men with men, committing what is shameful, and receiving themselves the penalty of their errors, which was due. And then it talks about these people doing that Then they be filled with unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceitful, evil-mindedness, whisper, backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud, boasters, proud. This was written a long time ago.
Brother.
Yes.
I am from Lithuania. Baltic states, 99% of population of Lithuania are white dudes and gals, right? Mm-hmm. So we have no idea, historically, we have no idea what is racism. We have never had slaves, like never. Yeah. We used to enslave our own people.
Yeah, that's where we get the Slavics. That's where we get the word slaves from. The Slavs, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Slavs, S-L-A-V, slaves. That's where you're getting from, because so many Slavs used to become slaves.
Then we got enslaved by the communist Russians for 60 to 70 years almost. I want to talk to you about race and racism. Can you explain me, what is a civil rights act? What was that?
That was, as I've learned recently, that was a civil rights operation. The Civil Rights Act allowed them to bring in the welfare state. The idea was to try to dissuade individual or governmental policies that would, like Jim Crow, that would...
Jim Crow is segregation.
It was part of segregation.
Restaurant for whites and blacks.
Yeah. And so you can't put in laws in public areas like that. That was the core of the Civil Rights Act. The underlying issue of the Civil Rights Act was the welfare state being introduced. And the civil rights movement, led by MLK and those guys, a lot of them, MLK, he was a professed communist. A lot of these guys were communists. And so that it was under the guise of oppress and oppressor. When you have that mentality, that's the Marxist mentality, right? Only one group's the oppressor, one group's the oppressed. It doesn't matter anything else. So they have to push the idea of race. They actually started moving away from the word Negro. That's what they used to call black people here, Negro. But they had to move away so they can incorporate skin color, black, white, black, white. So everything became black after that. They started, the new left started to sell that idea of black and white on a consistent basis. And that's what really, to me, came out of the civil rights operation, was to change our world and our country into only looking at skin color. And so that's where we're sitting now.
So that was, the fourth act was 1964.
1964, the Civil Rights Act, yeah.
Lyndon Johnson.
Mm-hmm. But remember, they didn't let it pass unless they put in the Democrats' welfare policies in there, which started to pay women.
And how do they benefit from it? Just by destroying the black community? They just hate you?
Well, the black community was a litmus test. The black community could use racism as a cover for you not to question what's happening. Shut up, you can't say nothing, you're white. Shut up, just stop. So when good people like the abolitionists who saw slavery and would literally kill slave owners and put their lives on the lines to stop this stuff. Now, because everyone's trying to be tolerant, you can't say nothing because we're black over here and the things that are happening in there, don't speak on it because years, da-da-da-da-da. That's it. It's a Teflon to back you away from it. Mm-hmm. And so they'll sit there and they'll use, the black community was the beta test group, guys. They would have grouped to now then put it in other communities. I don't need a man. That didn't start with white women. That started with black women. Now we hear white women saying the same thing. Unruly kids. That didn't start in the white community in that same way it started in the black community because it was raised by women. Now you have more and more white women and Hispanic women. It actually goes black, Hispanic, white. That have raising single kids and they're feminizing. We got black communities run by black women and gay guys. Black Lives Matter organization was started and ran by 3 fat lesbian women. Talking about break the patriarchy. That means break the fatherhood. They can use that as cover because if you say something, how dare you, you're not black, you can't say nothing. So they had unfettered access to a community and a whole swath of Americans in the belief that they're being nice and tolerant, kept their mouth shut, and this thing was allowed to go on. We've killed more of our babies than any other group before it even had the light of day. More of our babies were killed in abortions than black people during slavery, bro. You start looking at these numbers, you're like, who's the real racist? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and who sold those slaves in Congo back in the day?
Yeah, it was ancestors like my great grandfather, King Siaka Massaquoi, who sold slaves on the West Coast or West Africa.
Just from another tribe.
Yeah, he was a conqueror over there, and he sold his extra slaves. He didn't sell like, oh, I'm going to go work for you to go get slaves. He was like, wait, there's money in this like this? Okay, here's some extra ones. because he still needed it for his own. So what do I owe in reparations? Because I'm broke. You know what I'm saying? So this whole thing, the race thing, is to shut you up and other people with your melanin skin from seeing wrong in general and trying to speak from that godly place of, hey, there's a right way and a wrong way. No, you can't speak because you're not the skin color. Shut up.
But if you say so, you're an Uncle Tom.
Exactly. Because you'd have the women raising these kids. So you raise angry young girls and feminine young boys. Who then those young boys?
But they're angry at what?
They're angry at the lie
they
got
knocked up and got left to.
Well, it's a lie. It's a lie they've been told. It's a lie they've been told over and over, and it's hard. It's hard being a single parent.
Of course it is.
Right. So they're being told, hey, you can do it yourself and don't need no man, while in a situation where they need men. But then they turn around and they're being told you don't need men. You're upset because your brain's it's kind of like, hey, 6 feet, wear a mask. I know you don't have any symptoms, but wear a mask, take a shot. You can't go to work if you don't wear a mask, take a shot. That pissed a lot of people off. Imagine that in the home. When you know you need a man and it's everything around you saying, girl, you can do it. Yeah, you're the powerful. Yeah, hot girl summer. It's falling for, is when you move away from God, you fall for the world. And when they took money, that's the beginning of the end of the black community right there.
So that was just prior to, let's say, it's 1964. Prior to that, there was a strong community, strong families,
right?
A lot of kids.
Even being attacked by racist whites, even when we talk about Black Wall Street and the Tulsa Massacre and slavery and Jim Crow and lynching, even with all that, still stronger families than today. Yeah. Like, whoa, what happened?
Then black women got psyoped.
Yep.
And then the next generation had their kids, had their babies without men in the family.
And paid for it.
And got paid for that.
Yep.
They got paid to be a single mom.
Yep.
If you had a male in the house or a husband, you didn't get paid.
You got less money. You had these people coming to door, go, hey, if you just don't say the guy lives here, you get more money.
But on the one side, that's a good incentive, right? Like if you're single, we're gonna take care of you.
Yeah, that's the idea. But who's gonna take care of you?
Just you.
No, they're saying if you're single, who's the they that's going to take care of them?
The government.
Yes.
Yeah, but by giving money, it's not taken care of.
But even that, this country was founded on the fact that government is evil.
The smaller, the better.
Yeah. So all they did was increase the size of government with the promise of a lie. They did the same thing with the women's rights movement. Did the same thing with the civil rights movement. It's like all these movements, even reparation stuff. That just created another bureaucracy to help people. But we need the building. Okay, let's do the building. We'll sit there and fill people up. We got to hire people. That's going to cost money. But before anyone sees a check, that all needs to be paid for. And if we don't have enough to then now start giving people money, guess what they're going to come back and do? We got to raise taxes because we need to fill this because we didn't get enough for the reparations.
But it's temporary.
But that just increased the government more. And the idea that they're going to help people. Ronald Reagan said it best that the most dangerous words you can hear from the government is, "Hi, I'm the government. We're here to help you." People fell for it, unfortunately. And
do you think they knew exactly what they were doing?
No. The people or the government?
The government.
Yeah. I know they do. There's documentation. Piven and Coward, who were Marxist, wanted to destroy the American economic system by inundating with welfare. They knew if they can open it up to the black community, that can help put the weight on top of it.
Who were those?
Piven and Coward.
Americans.
Yes. Psychologist, leftist. You can go in there. It initially started with the Great Society Act. So the Great Society Act with FDR brought over about 30-some% of black people who were all voting Republicans with the promise of work. And then
that's during the Great Depression.
The Depression, yep.
1929.
1930 something, because say FDR came in like 36 or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So when he came in, after all Coolidge, ruined everything. Or Hoover, because the Hoovervilles. So yeah, it's evil is incremental, right? They don't just come in right off the bat and go boom, gotcha. They do after they believe they're a certain far along enough, but they'll chip. They'll even give up this 4 years just to go, okay, we'll come back around.
But communism is like an infection. It infects people.
Exactly.
Because they want just power.
Let me ask you this. In American movies, How many movies have you seen about like not World War II and Hitler? Probably can't count, right? How many movies in America are you seeing about Stalin, about Mao? Exactly. How many TV shows do you see about communism?
None.
Exactly.
There's nothing to talk about.
Because if you don't see it, then as it's coming up, those people don't see that's what they're doing. And everyone on the communist side are yelling fascist. Why? Because that's what they've been told over and over and over and over. Fascism, 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 fascism. It's diabolical, bro. When you sit back, you're like, whoa, these guys are, they're going hard in the paint. You go in schools and they don't teach us about our Constitution or how our laws of the land work. They don't teach us about finance. And yet, so you have people growing up, going into college and taking debt that they're $107,000 because they don't understand money. You see them like running around upset about the electoral college, not understanding why it's in place, so that you don't have mob mentality. They don't get that. Why? Because they don't get taught our values here of what the country is. That is on purpose. If you dumb down the population, you can control them.
That's why I touched this topic with Bryce, because the US was created on purpose the way it was created. Mm-hmm. For instance, Lithuania, other countries, other European countries, there was almost no purpose of creating those states. And back then, in 18th century, there was a purpose to create a country that is way different than the others back in Europe.
First ever.
Yeah, that's an experiment. Ever. That's a project.
Yes.
That's a startup.
You know, what's funny is I found this out. My wife looked up my last name and found more information about my family. The 3 times removed great-grandson of King Siaka, his name's Mamalu Massaquoi, first Liberian ambassador to Germany. He used to, in the late 1800s, he used to travel here in the United States in full African garb to educational conferences, speaking about the greatness of this country based on its Christian values and how it's going to be greater than any country, any nation that passed and any nation to come unless they adopt Christian values. He wanted Liberia to be the Christian beacon in Africa, country in Africa. So this idea not only has been in my family for a while, but it's also been seen from others as what makes this place different and great.
100%. You have no idea what kind of influence the US has on the world. Yeah. I was watching the movies. So the US for me is not LA or New York. No. LA is like Arizona, right? Utah. Those places.
Texas.
The
Midwest.
Freedom, the Eagles. When you can say whatever you want. Freedom. Liberty. That's what US is. It's all about that. And it's about being brave and bold.
Yes. Instead of saying the unpopular thing.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's turning, man. It's turning. Like, it didn't take us, it wasn't overnight that people got to communism. But yet I do believe it's kind of like when I came to Christ. It took time to get better understanding, but when you know, you just know. And it turns on a dime. But you have to start going down that path of curiosity. And I've seen so many people now, average people run for office, average people get involved in a way I've never seen before.
You're just fed up with this bullshit.
It gives me hope. It really does. Because even from 2020 to 2022, more people got involved. From 2022 to today, there's more people involved than 2020 too. Yeah. So again, it tells me, I think we're in the right direction. They're struggling. They're throwing everything at the wall, and it's not sticking, especially to Trump. There's rulings that have been coming down that are for us right now, and I will finish with this because I do have to. It's 1:14. I got to talk to my lawyers, but I'll finish with this. In working with LAGOP, I've seen the biggest failure that we have in the people that want pro-freedom is we do not show up to vote. We can talk about the machines. We can talk about the mail-in ballots. We talk about all day left and right. Okay, but the numbers don't lie, and we don't show up. We don't show up. On off years, we show up an average of 12 to maybe 20%. The left shows up an average of 46 to 52%, regardless on if it's a presidential or midterm. Presidential will show up at like a 60 plus, but midterms will drop all the way down to 20. So the flag waving, we love this country, Jesus loving individuals, there's no excuse. Show up. We should be averaging 80 to 90%, and then we can complain about the cheating. The less numbers that show up, the easier to cheat. The more money, or more people to show up, the harder to cheat. As Trump says, let's make it too big to rig.